Hi, welcome to the Canadian City and Southern Railroad. Today's video is changes, or maybe things I wasn't satisfied with. That's why it's taken so long. I had gotten this far with all this much track down, all my switches in, all my switch machines, all my buttons to control my switch machines. The track laid thus far, and I've decided it's just not good enough. What's wrong with it? I don't like the way the track in the foreground gets in the way of where the town is going to be. It's up high like it is now on the narrow gauge in order to keep the grades to a minimum, but I've figured out that's not going to be necessary because I can still keep the grades to a minimum farther around on the layout if I lower this whole area down. I don't want to have to do all this work over again, but I am going to rewire it, and I am going to redo all the switch machines and hook them up to their buttons and everything again and get it back to running the way it was just last night, but with much more satisfactory views when the scenery gets put in. The risers have been knocked out and the sub-road red has been removed. That took a few minutes. Cleaning up the bottom of the sub-road bed, getting all the old brads out and that sort of thing, that took a little bit longer. But I'm ready to set it back in place and decide just how much I want it to come up from the framework. It'll have to be at least enough to clear the motor that will turn the turntable. Now I can figure out just how much higher I want the narrow gauge to be from the dual gauge. And I'll probably make one or two other changes as well, having to do with allowing for drainage from the town area. Here are some of the servo mounts that I've tried. This one here was my first attempt. It held the servo vertically. This is my second attempt, and these worked pretty well. They held the servo horizontally, but they were kind of long and they were kind of hard to mount in certain places. This is a sequence of how I'm trying to do it now. And this is the final product. As you can see, it's not quite as wide, it's more compact, and it should be easier to mount and not get in the way of risers and such so easily. After lowering the narrow gauge section, I had to build these 5 short trestles in order to let the water flow out from the back of the layout. Also, this was too high and I just didn't like it. So those changes were made. And as I banged the old section from the higher up apart, some damage was done, so some track work had to be redone. That's why it's taken a while. I also had to build the decks for the bridges. I'll build the bents when the scenery's farther along. But the decks needed to be built so that I could realign the track where it had been messed up. Also, this back section back in here was extended farther over and back in order to make room for the stream bed. I've had a lot of trouble with my switch motors. I thought maybe it was the controller, but it turned out in the end, after a lot of testing and a lot of changes and a lot of redoing, it was actually that the wiring was not well done inside the bulk servos. Several of them had to be taken apart and the leads into the servo resoldered. I still have one that isn't responding all the time to commands from the controller. I'll have to deal with that. But I want to move on to some other things, get into some scenery and all stuff like that. Well, thanks for watching and have a good day. And here's some pictures of my previous 2 layouts.